Okay, so call this meeting June 19th, the Town Board of Shamrock Lakes to order. Has everybody had a chance to read and approve last month's minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Treasurer's report, same thing. Any questions on that? Okay. Diane?
Okay, so there are several past due accounts. So there are four, Arlie's, Brooms, McVeigh, and Walker that are past due. So letters have been sent and I'll file a lien at the end of the month if they are not able to pay. The other past due accounts are Baker. Klein has made significant inroads in getting theirs caught up. McGarry and Sutton. Sutton did have a problem with a check. I think that's what contributed to theirs. The bank misprinted their account number on their checks. So.
Okay. Anybody any questions there? Okay. We're going to start, we'll start with Paul Bailey. Paul, did you have something to present to us about a boat ramp or?
Why don't we go ahead and go to the Lake Association first?
Okay, that's fine. We'll let you do that and then, okay, very good. Thank you. Next thing, number 2 under new business, Woods is not present, will not be doing a presentation. So we'll jump ahead to Ann Owen. Ann, if you would.
Am I okay sitting right here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm here tonight with 2 different proposals to change the Blackford County zoning ordinance. The first one is section 405, and I think we got the thing on the line that's being added. The agency gave favorable recommendation by a vote of 802 absent on May 6th to add the following line to the ordinance. An appeal of the decision by the administrator must be made within 30 days of said decision. I need, anytime the ordinance changes, I have to go to all the entities, so that's why I'm here tonight. And I do have 2 changes, but they must be voted on separately. And I have a form that Mike, you and Diane need to sign after saying whatever it is. I already sent Lisa Danielle. She okayed them. She made that, she let me know that she reviewed them.
She did.
It was okay. Yeah. So Kelly is your APC person, so he can.
So how does this, I guess I'll start some conversation. How does this change the existing ordinance? Kind of educate us here.
At that line saying, putting the 30 days in, which lines it up per the attorney, he requested it be in there to line it up with the state.
Is there any time frame in there right now?
No, if there's no time frame, it reverts to the state's code. And this, he said, would just line it up with the state.
And so the state code says 30 days. Okay. Deb, I see you. And we'll open this for public comment. So we'll go by section that way, since we have 2 different things. Deb, did you have something you want?
On that?
Yes,
It'll be the same on both of them. My name is Deb Brighter.
that's fine. Thank you.
So
Talk
I
loud
sent you
enough.
guys,
There we go.
It picked you up.
so I sent you guys all an email, and the IC code 3674918.1, there is no state time limit on administrative. There is on the board of zoning, which is different than the administrator. So on the board of zoning, you do have 30-day board of zoning. which is different than the administrator. So on the Board of Zoning, you do have 30 days to file that appeal, but their decision is made right at a hearing, where an administrator, you don't even know when she's made a decision. And the ordinance gives her a lot of leeway to make lots of decisions. So if she would make a decision, how are we going to know she made that decision to be able to, within 30 days, file that appeal? So I would not like to see where we have to go to circuit court or file lawsuits. I think we should be able to go and talk and work it out as opposed to filing suits. But there is no state code time limit. And in that email I sent you, I also sent you a case from Madison County where the judge looked it up. And actually that's why he found it in favor, is because there is no time limit on the state for administrator appeal. Totally different from the BZA board hearings decision. Those are two separate things.
So if there is no time limit, I mean, could that be 3 months down the road, 2 years down the road?
Yes, it
Okay.
could. So the one that the APC board brought up that they were concerned with was, and it had to do with wind and solar, and that's just what they went on. There was an appeal filed against a decision the administrator made 5 months after she made that decision. But the problem was they weren't able to obtain the proper paperwork to look for it to make, and that's why it was good that there was no time limit on the appeal. Because if there was, we'd be in court instead of just trying to work it out with an appeal. The appeal is always the first step before you go to court.
Right, try and work things out.
Yes. And the problem with the administrator versus the board, you have your minutes. So, and those don't always, so 30 days is not that adequate really, because if you don't have, if the BCA doesn't have a meeting the next month, it could be 60 days before they make their minutes available to even be looked at. Where an administrator, she makes decisions every single day and there's no record of it unless it comes up later. So that way it'd be a lot harder. So one of my questions was, how are we going to get notified the public every time an administrator makes a decision? And that's a lot of notification. And of course, there's a lot of problems with notifications anyway,
Right.
getting out. So it's that issue that I feel like we should not be putting a time limit on it at all. It should stay just like the state's code is, because that gives people an opportunity to work it out without any legal action.
Sure.
And you may be getting ready to answer this, but I'm Steve Baller on the board, and my question is, so I hear that the attorney said that is in putting our ordinance in line with the state code. Is the code that Deb is mentioning, is that the same code that the attorney?
This decision this part is not based on my everyday in-office decisions. Those have to follow the zoning ordinance. It's not like me choosing to make a decision. This is based, let's say Kelly came and requested a permit for a house and it was 600 square foot. My ordinance says 720. I could deny him that because it didn't meet my code.
The minimum square feet. Yeah.
He could appeal, no one else could appeal. So it's not that if the public knew I made that, because the only one that can appeal that decision is him. So it's not something where the public needs to know every step. This is based on the person who's going to file the appeal. They would know when I denied it, hey, it's being denied because it doesn't meet this criteria. And if you want to file an appeal, I tell them how. This is not based on my everyday decisions where I enforce the ordinance.
How are they notified right now? How are they notified?
Like if they come to me to get a permit and we start reviewing the plans and they're not meeting code, then I would say, hey, this doesn't meet section 307, whatever.
Okay,
So you could either increase it, and then we have to tell them right then that we're denying this permit because it doesn't meet our zoning.
okay. Is there any letters, anything like that?
Yeah, I would
formal?
do it on my letterhead, give it to them so they would have a record of it. But they're the only one that could appeal that.
Okay,
Like Diane couldn't come to me and say, hey, I'm appealing you denying Kelly that. She doesn't have, oh, he's the only one that could appeal.
Do you make
So-
any decisions that affect the public, not just individual entities that are requesting permits or any other
Goes
things?
by the ordinance. If it's in the ordinance, that's what I have to enforce. If there's any questions on it, we consult with the attorney. But this is not something that, I'm not changing anything in the ordinance. I'm only enforcing it.
And I'm gonna be honest on the record, I did not read the whole ordinance, so I don't understand.
It's good reading, Steve.
Yeah, I had time to read it, but,
It's not.
and I see Deb's
it,
itching.
well, and that's,
Go ahead.
I think that's part of the point. I hear what you're saying. I've got to make sure I understand the entire ordinance and how those decisions are made, or not made, but your decisions as an administrator versus what the ordinance is talking about for the board. If there is a clear difference, then I'd be okay. But if they are saying they want a 30-day limit at the board level, the BZA level, may or may not be, because I want to know what that code is the attorney's saying we're trying to get in line with, so that I can read that code versus the code that Deb's providing. Is that the same code? I mean,
Deb,
So there were 4 appeals filed, and they were filed.
from who and against who?
Okay, so, from that APC meeting, the appeals were filed. You have to live within and this is just, they brought up wind and solar. You have to live within a half a mile of the project to file an appeal. So in this instant, those people filed an appeal, but they were not able to file that appeal for over 5 months because they weren't able to get the documentation they needed to research it. And the administrator made the decision in September. Now, remember, these hearings were in 2022. And then she was given the approval to give an extension. And then in September of 2024, she gave that extension, which is 2+ years after the BZA hearing. And that decision that she made in September is what that group is appealing. So that was 5 months after. Because
And that's for Blackford County?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well,
Can I
so
explain that part?
the BZA gave her the authority to grant that extension. Okay,
The BZA hearing in 22 to approve this for Blackford Solar granted them an extension through December 31st, 2024.
Okay.
In September of 2024, they knew that the PGM thing wasn't going to cycle through. So I had until December 31st to extend that. We did it in September instead of December, but I had till the BZA gave them the special exception approval through December 31st, 2024.
and the BZA allowed you to extend it past that?
And then I could add 1 year, more year if necessary, if it wasn't through all its regulations for PJM.
And I kind of understand that from the committee.
What's- PGM, you say?
PJM is that's who runs the grid for this part of the country, the electrical grid.
Okay,
And that solar company was still waiting to go through the permitting process with PJM.
okay,
And they knew there'd be a delay. So they asked for the special exceptions, normally only good for a year. But the BZA has the authority to amend all that stuff. They made it good through December 31st, 2024. I extended I read, and then I could do my 1 more year. I did that in September,
okay.
prior to it expiring in December.
Deb,
Okay, so there is an appeal against that, what she just talked about, Blackford Solar right now. And that is why the appeal is there, is because the extension was given after the permit had expired.
It didn't
So-
expire till December.
That's what the
31st.
appeal's about, to determine that from the minutes, from the hearing. And that's why there was an appeal filed originally, and that's why there's a second appeal filed, because the extension was, outside of the permit. So, and all this is coming about because the decision was made, like, when it was. Not saying she couldn't make the decision, like, not saying that. But here we gave her 2.5 years to make a decision, and now we're trying to cut it to where you only have 30 days to appeal that decision she made. If this goes
I
through,
didn't make the decision. The
Well,
BZA made the decision.
they give her the authority to do it, but it's still a decision that the administrator does, because in the ordinance, if you read the ordinance, there are a lot of places in the ordinance that says that, the administrator, even on all the wind and solar stuff and some not outside of that, that, there's stuff that, I'm trying to think some of the stuff through Article 10 and 11. She can do the foliage, like, she can work that out with the wind and solar people. So they can decide what native plants they're putting in or not putting in and all that. So that would be a decision she makes, so we're not gonna know she makes it, but we should have a right to say, hey, wait a minute. The ordinance says all this native stuff and now you changed it to now.
I didn't change it, the BZA, they did the variance with the BZA, that was their, BZA did that.
In the ordinance, it says she can do, in the ordinance, it says she can make those decisions on a lot of different things. If you read through the ordinance in Article 10 and 11, which we don't have them done yet, but what's already in there, there's a lot of things in there that says that the person who's in that position can make those decisions. And that's my concern is there's places, it doesn't have to come from the board at all. She can make decisions, and what we're trying to figure out is, well, if she makes the decision, how are we gonna know when that decision's made and how timely will we know about it in order to fit into that 30 days? Because 30 days is too short of a period, especially if we don't find out about it until 3 or 4 months after it happens. So I think putting a timeline on it is going to put us into legal issues all the time. That's not where I think people want to be, is legally going up against their county officials. It's all about trying to work it out prior to. And most of your courts will tell you, did you go through the appeal process first? Well, if we're out of time, we can't do that. The 30 days isn't enough time to get records to do that.
So what's number 3? We have 1 and 2. You said there were 4 lawsuits that
No,
that was not,
There was 4 that, the ones you
Appeals.
guys.
Oh, there were 4
appeals that you
appeals
went-
filed.
okay.
The ones you went through.
Okay.
Yeah, they filed those appeals. They're going a different avenue, so, they withdrew the appeals.
And
Whoever that group, I can't remember the name of the group, but they withdrew their appeals. And now you have individuals who have now filed an appeal, and the hearing's in July.
And that appeal is with the board.
Before the BZA. yes.
No, it's against the administrator, is what it is.
Before the BZA.
But the BZA
Yes.
hears the appeal.
Yes, and
Okay,
then, so like, what would happen is if, say they go in there and do that and they uphold everything, then that's when that group could go ahead and move into a lawsuit. Go to circuit court, go to a lawsuit, is what they could do. That's why the appeal process is very important, and a timeline, you gotta have it reasonable. I mean, maybe indefinite is not reasonable, but 30 days is definitely not reasonable enough to get
So,
paperwork and be able to do that process.
so the BZA cannot make an exception past the 30 days. It would automatically go to a court case. Is that what I'm hearing? If this was to be approved and published as the update to the ordinance that anything past 30 days, appeal cannot be heard.
Right, has to
It
go
can
to
still be
court,
heard, it has to go through Centauri, through the courts.
through the courts instead of just at the board.
But
Instead
the
of the
BZA
board.
won't hear it. They'll just say, no, we're not going to hear this past 30 days, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, and that's how many ordinances were written on the BZA part of it.
On the
What-
board, but not on the administrator.
what's the Indiana code?
The attorney
Mhm.
was saying that we're trying to get in accordance with, or
Right,
in line with, not.
Do you have your notes from that night? I don't know.
I have the minutes from that night, they didn't give a code.
I just want to make sure we're talking the same code.
Mhm.
right, right.
And if maybe language needs to be updated, say 30 days for BZA decisions.
Well, these are 2 separate things I'm requesting. The other one is the BZA.
And the first one is for,
Administrator decision. The decisions that are made based on my ordinance aren't appealable decisions in that.
from outside the individual.
Right.
If it's an individual issue,
Then it's
like your example, which I understand that.
Yeah, so it's the reason these people can, like, I cannot file the appeal because I do not live within that half mile.
You're not hurt by it
affected by.
or affected by it. Thank you.
Your feelings may be hurt, your feelings may
Right.
be hurt, but,
So,
or
yeah,
opinion.
so I could now lawsuit, everybody could jump into the lawsuit. But in order to file the appeal, you have to live, and I'm talking about this specific, and I think all of them's that way, right? Half a mile? Within half a mile of the
In
affected
the
area.
county, yes.
Mhm.
Is that half mile as a crow flies? No, I'm serious, because,
Yeah,
So
If-
you've been on Beacon before?
right,
Mhm.
And you say you click on your property, the outer borders of your property. There's a
You got your pin.
thing on Beacon that you click, and it goes half a mile from the outer borders of your entire property. Property line, it goes a half mile, that's how I get the notification area.
So of course, people who live just inside that half mile are a little upset.
right,
Well, yeah.
But that always happens. It doesn't matter if you move it to a mile, it's gonna be the same thing. There's still.
right. People at 1.1 are gonna be upset.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it is the,
So if I understand you right, you're saying that there could be decisions that affect more than one or a handful of people. And some decisions made by the administrator, the people that it affects, they might not receive notice of that decision in enough time to make their appeal within 30 days, right? Situations different than if someone like goes to the office and discusses plans and gets an immediate answer. And that's where the concern is, right?
yes. I just don't want to see us, I don't want, me personally, I'm not into the lawsuit thing. And I think as to have transparency and to get along with county officials, you have to have that transparency, but you also have to have accountability for decisions that are made. So, there's no accountability.
So people do that.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And let's be real, a lot of people within our county are not gonna be financially able to take a lawsuit on because
Sure.
that's big. I can tell you right now, Wells County had a lawsuit against their wind pump, the wind and solar there, it was wind. And they filed a lawsuit that stretched out for years and over $100,000 was invested in that. They did not have wind, which is not really the point. The point is, look how long it'll drag out and look how much money gets spent. And I think the public has a right, when I say public, I'm talking the affected area, has a right to be able to make that appeal first and try to work it out with government officials first, instead of going to those circuit courts and lawsuits,
Yeah.
because it looks bad for everybody.
So you believe it should be an open-ended appeal process versus a limited, maybe versus 4 or 6 months?
I did talk to one of the commissioners, and they thought more in line was 12 months. I was more in line with like 18, but I'll just be honest, I've been going to meetings for 10 months, and there's not a lot of public that goes to the meetings. So I don't think that you're going to open a can of worms by leaving it the way it is, because obviously there hasn't been big issues come up. I will say with the wind and solar, that's a huge difference for the county. That's a huge difference. It's brought a lot more controversy to the table. So, of course, it affects a lot more people because it's spread out all throughout the whole county. So that really has spurred things up, and everything else. I'm not opposed to putting a time limit on there, but when you can't get documents for 5 months, that's a problem. So we have to be able to get the documents in a timely manner. We have to know when decisions are made in order for us to even be able to do that first step, which is the appeal.
Is there any kind of code making that timeline for making documents available after decisions have made, like the board is required to make something available to the affected people within a certain amount of time.
Yes,
I think maybe I'm asking both,
Whoever.
whoever knows.
I don't have a timeline thing on it. It
So-
says, the state says reasonable.
How does the county interpret reasonable?
It depends on, are you requesting just a copy of this, or are you requesting all the documents from something that's, it just depends.
Yeah, it could be
It's
extensive.
really,
Yeah, or it could be quick. If it's just a copy of the ordinance, poof, you got it's online. They're accessible online.
Your hearings are the ones that you have to, put a request in for.
So, I mean, so far, it sounds like what ifs. I mean, you're kind of reaching out at, well, what if? And have you went to the county commissioners on, this sounds like an administration, you're trying to modify the administration a little bit, and no?
No,
Do you have any issues that actually fall in the ordinance that you're trying to?
well, when you put that 30-day in the ordinance, that will dictate, like, so this, people that just filed this, appeal, just recently where the hearing's coming up, as soon as this goes into effect, that will wipe out anything that's happened that's happened.
Special exception. I mean, we hear when anybody wants to address at BZA, we listen, and we can throw in a special exception on, whatever. I think the one thing you're referencing about the 5 months is like the 2 year or 3 years back or whatever, that some of this, the documents you
So
wanted.
I requested documents on August the 28th,
Okay,
and I did not get my documents.
of 24? Okay,
And I made repeated requests. I went before the board in an attempt. I went privately to the commissioners in an attempt to get the records. And as a last, very, very last resort, I filed a complaint with the state to get my documents. So I did not get the documents until January. So that's a long time, and I cannot file, if you put that 30-day on there, if I'm in that affected area, I cannot make that appeal because now I needed all those documents to be able to make that decision whether to file that appeal or not.
BZA ever turned you down on anything? As far as special exceptions, or, I mean,
I've never went before the BCA and asked for a special exception on anything. Like, I'm not.
at the time, those documents, part of them were, that was when the construction had started. We couldn't go on the 4th floor. Everything was tarped off. They couldn't get to all the boxes. And we did consult with the attorney and the commissioners. I said, I can't get to them right now. When I did, we had several hundred pages of copies to make for those. So yes, that one did take a while, but that was an intensely big package to get. Plus we couldn't get access to them because they were 2 years old. They were already up on the 4th floor in storage.
Those were brought down in September because I made a complaint to the commissioners because I asked why would we put stuff on the 4th floor in storage when it is one of the biggest open projects, unclosed, that we've had in the county. And those documents were brought down in September to the first floor, whatever, where that office is. So the documents were down there. And the issue the state had is the multiple dates that were promised and then not received with no communication. So, can I have a copy of that if you want it?
Was that under Freedom of Information Act?
Yeah.
I am a person who's going to go the length without all the, as lack of a better word, fighting, which is why I requested documents multiple times, which is why I went privately. I usually don't call people out by name or anything in meetings. Still don't even do that with Lincoln Solar guys. I love them all. They're great people. But I went to commissioners privately multiple times. They told me they had a conversation with the person and they still did not get the documents. And then I went before the PCA, which I learned it's not what to do. But I was desperate to try to get the documents before filing the state complaint. And when that did not help me either, then I resorted to my last resort, which was filing a complaint. Now, once I got the documents, I did pick up the phone and call Luke Britt from the state and tell him I got the documents and I would like him to stop any proceedings with that complaint. Because I didn't really want it to go on record. Because she gave me the documents, it did not go on record. It's there just saying that it was filed, but it wasn't, they usually do, I'm not exactly sure how they give that out, a reprimand or whatever for not producing the documents.
Were you able to find that Indiana code?
I got it right. The only thing in the code on that paragraph is that one word. So, I mean, we'd have to read through the whole code if you were, but that could,
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that doesn't apply if you read the whole code. You're looking for the appeals process of any decision of the BZA or the administrator.
Yeah.
In the code, so you'd have to search through it. Yeah, I just brought it up on the internet from Blackwood County site, so.
And any administrative decisions followed in the ordinance of the county. If there's nothing that. It's pretty black and white, it doesn't give me the way to change stuff, I have to follow the zoning ordinance.
But you only deal with the ordinances that are planning and zoning.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not dealing with animal ordinances and all that other ordinances. This is purely
Yeah.
focused on planning and zoning.
It seems like the concern is not so much with, I mean, outside of this one line establishing a specific timeline, that there's not so much an issue with the content of the ordinance as it exists, but with people being informed enough, timely enough to decide whether they want to appeal or not. And it sounds like history in some cases has shown that people have not been given access to enough information soon enough to make their appeals decision.
But the
So,
ones who I make the decision with,
right,
they do
Of
have
course.
an option.
of course. But I'm hearing you don't make face-to-face decisions with every single person that could be affected by any,
The entire
Any
county is
decision.
affected by anything in that book. I mean, literally the entire, my ordinance covers the entire county.
But not everybody in the county can appeal. Or
right?
rule.
Unless it's.
That's what we're
directly
talking about
affecting
here.
them, yes.
That's
Yeah.
what I think that's where
If
Rachel's,
there's an appeal with a decision that I make based on that, it would go to my bosses,
Mhm.
which are the commission.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think any of us has a concern generally with the appeal process, but just, is it long enough? Is 30 days actually long enough for people to have does this cover every single possible circumstance? Not just the ones where people are sitting face to face, but the ones who are not face to face when a decision is made. Is 30 days long enough in order for them to know what's going on in order to make a decision? And
But this is referring to a decision that I made
so,
with someone. Decision I make on here, that's not appealable this way. That's gotta go through the commissioners. If you're appealing how I'm doing my job on that, it goes to the commissioners. This is a decision based on
so you're saying
someone.
section 405 only applies to the decisions that you make when you sit face to face with people.
Yeah, section 4, article 4 is just on administration and enforcement. And that section 405 reads, any person aggrieved or affected by any provision of the ordinance or decision of the administrator
Mhm.
may appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals as provided by the rules of the board.
Mhm.
With these in. By filing a notice of the appeal specifying the grounds thereof. So it's talking about any person aggrieved or affected by any provision of the ordinance or decision by the, and then every decision of the board shall be subject to review by Sartori. Say it right.
Certiorari.
That's where that line's being added in that section.
I see it, yeah. I think my question's not about that.
I didn't know
so
if you had
much.
the whole part of that.
I think my question is any person aggrieved or affected from what we're hearing today could be beyond decisions that are made when you're sitting face to face with people and can like give them that decision right away and they know. And they have all of the reasons why. Any person aggrieved or affected could be affected by a decision where they're not like receiving that decision in person with you.
That would be a different path. That's where you would go to the commissioners whom I serve under. That goes through them. This goes, they're two separate things.
So you're saying like the decision to make what Deb, what you're speaking about, that decision was not made by you, it was made by the commissioners.
No, I have to go by the ordinance. I make that decision based on the ordinance and the advice of the attorney.
Mhm.
That would, if they're saying I did something wrong through that, you take that up with my boss.
Sure.
This is a direct decision affecting the person. That's how the attorney explained it to me.
So you're saying that this section 405 method of appeal, this 30-day count to appeal a decision made by you doesn't apply to the situation that Deb is talking about.
No. Like if she's saying just any decision I make on my day-to-day basis, on my day-to-day job. Like if I make a decision about a permit, or if I make a decision on not issuing a certificate of occupancy based on this.
So let's say this is approved, this 30-day cap for an appeal to be made. Let's say it's approved and some other big issue comes up and people request documents to be informed of the issue, to be informed of the original decision, and they do not get access to that information within
They'll
30
get
days.
access. Well, right.
Let's say they don't, and then they try to file an appeal, they will not be able to.
They'll have to go through the court for it,
Right.
which is.
So it seems to me that maybe the county needs to be a little bit clearer on and more timely in making information available to the public. And the question is whether 30 days is reasonable.
There's a fan over here. Sorry.
Just-
Do you have that paper, that email I sent you, is that what you're looking at?
I have one sent by and I do not have a copy of the one you sent. No.
Because, on 405, if you're reading it right from the ordinance, it says nothing until any person aggrieved or affected by any provision of this ordinance or by any decision of the administrator may appeal to the board of zoning appeals. And that's under 405.
Yeah, we have that section of the ordinance stated here.
Is it any person aggrieved?
Yeah.
All at once happen, so that-
So, it really seems like the big question for us tonight is whether we agree that 30 days is a reasonable enough amount of time. If information needs to be provided to the public and for people to actually file an appeal after a decision has been made. So,
We're still hearing, do you have anything else or no? Anybody else speaking? Okay, you just step up.
So I'm familiar with Freedom of Information Act. I'm not familiar with the timelines there. Any idea on what the timelines are
There
for?
is literally no set time.
Okay,
It just says reasonable pertaining to the request.
okay.
So,
As defined by the person with the record.
and I'm not the one requesting this change. I mean,
sure,
the attorney took it to the APC. I'm here
it's not personal.
no, I'm just saying, I'm here to tell you that this is what the APC recommended. So,
Sure.
What caused the attorney to create this or recommend this, I guess?
he's the one, he
Updating
literally is the one, yeah, we're updating a lot of stuff, and this is one thing that he came to him with at the May hearing that he presented to the APC.
In the minutes, it actually references the appeals that were filed 5 months after the decision was made. So that is actually referenced in the minutes of the
Yeah,
APC.
it did trigger this
It triggered it.
because he said we have to have clear cut language.
So was 30 days an arbitrary number he came up with, or?
That's, most
Because-
ordinances have 30 days.
State.
Well, that's where I'm looking, and I'm trying to find the
Okay, well-
Indiana code that would say different than the open end that Deb's showing. Because if the attorney's saying we're trying to meet the Indiana code for planning and zoning, and it was in there, and I say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. But I can't find it, and I've got the Indiana state codes up right now, and I don't want to spend all of our time here trying to search it. I would be curious if that's a general statement the attorney made, which is interesting coming from an attorney. If he did that, or she did that they said, hey, we're trying to get in line with the Indiana codes. But yet they're not specific on which code. Because the code here, which getting ready to hit it in the Indiana code, make sure it is currently the one online that states it's open-ended, in my opinion, not those words, but that's what it is. It implies that the appeal can be submitted at any time and reviewed by the Board of Zoning. Now, that doesn't mean the Board of Zoning is going to agree to it, and they may deny it, and then it does go to the courts if the appellant decides they want to take it farther. That's their call. But I'm just curious. That's kind of where I'm hung up. If we don't have something clear that states, hey, it is 30 days in the state's code in other ordinances, then that might be a justification. But to me, for right now, I would say, why couldn't we say longer, or why would we limit it, or let's come to a happy medium of 6 months or a year? I don't know. To allow somebody time to do research if they had to do research.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I know.
Mhm.
Trying to do stuff at the county to dig things up and get people to respond can be slow.
That's no rush.
I don't think we can make a decision today. I feel like we need more time to do some research.
Are we still on public? Are we hearing, is there anybody else to hear from?
You know, and absolutely.
Anybody else comments? Okay. I guess we're not.
I just double check and make sure.
Right, no,
If
thank
we
you.
start deliberating.
Right, we don't want to leave anybody out.
Absolutely. I don't think I'm ready to vote on this today.
I am not comfortable without looking and finding where that's at in Indiana code is defined as 30 days.
Are
And
you just looking at still just 4 and 5 or?
well, if it affects both, then it would affect both.
Well, no, because this one, this is 502. This is the one that I know lines it up with all the counties. He sent me copies of 7 different counties, that it is 30 days. Some days.
So is it lined up with the counties or the state?
The state says 30 days. You can
Okay.
go less on this part, on
For the BCA part.
502, yes.
14 days on one of the.
One of them's 14, Muncie's 14,
Some of those like that.
Huntington County is
Metro.
14. But they're still zoning boards. It doesn't matter. Some counties, ours encompasses everything. Some places, there's a county ordinance and the city zoning. The city is separate.
But I just read in one of the Indiana codes, Title 36, Article 7, going on down, where it was defining by population, like 500,000 or more, 250 to 500, and that's where it started talking. I didn't have a chance to look through everything. I skimmed over those because of population being involved.
Yeah, zoning ordinances aren't, I mean, none of mine, it's up to in Marion, Grant County has a zoning ordinance. The Gas Cities is just their own. They chose to, like you guys at the beginning of when the ordinance was created, Shamrock Lakes, Montpelier, and Hartford City all had to do like, almost like an interlocal agreement that you fall under our ordinance. All the towns had to agree to that.
Right.
Some towns opted to not be a part of it. So yes, some of these are county ordinances, some are municipal ordinances.
But we're talking county, a change to the county ordinances, be it section 405 or section 502. Yes, it affects us. That's why it's before us to vote or to discuss. And, but when you were talking Muncie, you were talking Huntington.
Well, I was saying I had their ordinances showing what their BCA thinks. Their
Right. And what I'm saying
30
is
days.
population may come into play there. I can sit here and read the Indiana codes talking about, it talks about metro, it talks about population definition. I'm not going to do that right now. I feel that we need to table this so the board can do some more checking on this. I would like the Indiana code that says 30 days, not Rushville, not, Evansville, not Sullivan, Indiana, or Sullivan County. You had said Indiana code, so that's the one I want to take a look at, because we don't need to be like everybody else necessarily.
Can I have Alan? Is it okay to give him your email to my attorney?
Yes, please. And who is the attorney?
Alan Wisely,
Okay. Is he local or?
Beasley Gilkison in Muncie.
Okay. Yes, please.
So can I go ahead? I'm gonna write on here that you tabled it.
Yes.
So I have to show this sheet to the commissioners. Like normally you would put, you either
Yay or nay.
refuse it or.
Right.
So that way I can put it with Harvard's and Montpelier's to take it to them. I just
Yeah.
crossed out voted and said table. The test to you. So you automatically put me on next month's agenda?
Yeah.
Because you're the last one to go through.
Okay.
Do you want a copy of those? Or-
Yeah.
Since it's just table, you want me
It
to
does.
email it to you? I can scan it, email it
Yeah,
to you.
yeah, I'll put it in minutes.
I've got it on digits. I didn't print it.
Oh, that's fine.
And I
Thank you.
always spell out, it's Wiseley.
Okay.
Out that second E. in here.
Okay, yeah, please feel free, give my email. I'll share the information with them and we'll go from there then. All right, thank you. Anything else? Deb, anything else? Since you're- Okay. Okay. If we can, let's roll back to old business.
Bob Bailey said he did wish to be addressed. He said to Joe Lehman, if you wanna
Okay,
do that, or if you wanna wait.
no, that's fine. Paul, did you want to address or you just, are you wanting to address the board for anything or just, okay. And Joe Lehman? Okay. Didn't know it was the social event before the Pacers game. That's okay. That's good though. We appreciate. Rich or Mandy? Nothing? Okay. All right. So we'll go into old business, town website.
Steve and I have been chatting about updates and organizationally things that make sense. To those who are here today, we did get a new URL for the website, trying to make that as dispersed as we can. And we're adding more information about lake associations to the website, including meeting minutes as each association approves for those to be shared. So not a whole lot there. And I still need to send you some stuff on linking our meetings to the website.
Okay.
I think that's all.
Okay.
Any questions about the website?
No? Next thing, the community crossings grant. This is a grant we applied for through NDOT that helps us pave our streets. And it was approved. We have the money. It's just, the gentleman from EMB paving was supposed to get to me today. I just looked again. He did not, of getting this done. And this will be the last section, which it's Connor right over here on the dam, and then Lakeview. Those are the last two that have not been done. And then they are also the manhole there at Meridian and Anglin, where it's chunking up there. They are going to come in and they're going to put concrete, cut it out and put concrete around it, so we don't have that problem with it breaking down at that manhole. So they'll fix that. The other, and then that means everything will have been repaved within about the last 7 or 8 years. And then we're looking at doing some maintenance, crack sealing, things like that, trying to preserve what we have. And then we evaluate that pretty much every fall or spring and then apply for it as needed. So another hot topic, online payment options.
So we need an extension on the trial run we were doing with sort of randomizing
Okay.
payment. We fell down on the job a little bit. So we're going to try to do the first round of that for July.
Okay.
Yeah, to not happen in June.
And so you folks know that we put a survey out some time ago asking about online payment. Would you like to have that? And I was trying to find a good platform and how does it equate bookkeeping? And so we're going to do a pilot project with a handful of people to see, and then it's trying to marry up the payments to where the State Board of Accounts or Department of Local Government Finance it meets with their approval, because we go through an audit every year, every 4 years.
They can do it every 4 years. They tend to, I mean, we can do it every year. They tend to do it every 4 years.
Okay.
And we just went through one in 2023.
Okay.
You did.
Not me.
Huh?
No,
You-
Liza.
That was my-
Liza did.
Oh,
Yes.
Any questions on the online payment?
And when will we have the list of, well, I know we're not going to publish that to Diane, but that's part of the test. So she can figure out who's paying and what amounts and times. When do you think we'll have that ready to go before the 10th sometime?
Yeah, I will work on it Monday,
Okay.
getting everyone assigned.
And
What they're
how many
supposed to
did we
do.
say we were gonna, I can't
I think there
remember.
was 4 or 5,
Yeah.
like including us, that we're gonna try that out.
That would be a good number, I think.
What I will need from you to disperse to them, unless you have already done this, is use or the code. Like it's been a while since I've done this.
They need their
you know.
sewer account number too.
They need that, and then they have like the link to our PayGov platform,
Okay,
right? If you can send that to me,
okay.
then I can disperse it to everyone who volunteered with their instructions.
It's online. Okay. Steve, animal/noise ordinance.
Okay, I did some lengthy work on the animal ordinance, which covers this week. So you may not have had time
It's in your packet.
to review yet. So I made quite a few changes on it. In the email I sent, I gave you kind of a highlights, which that would help save you reading everything, but it'll point you to some directions and areas where I made significant changes. So it's out there for your comments. And as soon as we get that back from y'all, if you all agree with the changes in red, and or if you have recommendations or corrections in the text that's in black, if you need to send that to me for additional updates, I'll share that with everybody once that's complete. But yeah, it's pretty, I know it's lengthy, but that is based off of Hartford City's Mount Pilliers, Tipton's animal ordinances that are in their codified codes. So codification code manual. So yeah, there you go. It's out there and it's long, but I think it's what we need in detail for being like a harborer or a running at large, that type. It's all defined in there. So,
Okay.
and again, that is based on Indiana code, updated Indiana code as well. So,
Thank you. You put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
And give these.
well, that's it. I'm pretty happy.
That's just her though.
I know. But just if I could, it's kind of a lead in or sidebar to the code of ordinances that we talked about before 2 meetings ago. Sooner than later, and go ahead and if we're going to go with the company that I provided, the American legal company that most of the towns and cities use in Indiana, at least Hartford City uses it and Blackford County uses it as well. I recommend we go with that and make a decision on that soon, because that is a kind of about anywhere from 4 to 6 month process. And if we do elect to go with that company, and we only have to pay that half up front, which is like just shy of $800, I believe. And then they'll send us the initial Indiana basic code, which would be the format we would use, and those codes, if we could bounce our codes off of that, see what we can either eliminate or merge, if you will, and use the Indiana code. And then any of our codes that are special, like our animal code, would be probably more lengthy than the Indiana code. Then our ordinance would stay in place, and we would just put that in a separate section within that code manual. So again, I know I'm on my soapbox, but I think since we're talking about an ordinance and which would be tied to that, I think now's the time to talk about that and say, please, let's get moving on that if we can, if you all agree.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, the only thing with that is, I mean, where the money's fall, and I put on the business that we ought to start. I mean, we've had several projects you want to try to squeeze in, and I don't know if you've got the board or the next year's budget passed through the state yet, but we ought to start putting together the steps for whatever projects we want to look at next year. I mean, $800 ain't, end of the world, but
Well, and I agree with you, Kelly. You said the magic word, budget. We have a budget, but it's not a complete budget of the things we want to do. So Mike and I spoke about that this afternoon a little bit. We need to work on a budget. However, we do have general operating funds that we can do some, not all, because we can't afford to just give all the money away for the town. But I just think it's less than $2,000 to get us started, to get our codes organized and written based on Indiana, or not a code, our ordinances reviewed, kind of like the county's doing right now with Ann's group doing those ordinance updates. We're just trying to get our ordinances updated and in line with the current Indiana state code, the county codes, etc. And also be able to provide it electronically to the town members, the people that live here, that right now do not know. Yes, in some respects, it's on the homeowners to know what the codes are in our town and come to the meetings, but they don't. So now that we have our website up and running, this will allow us an opportunity to organize them, make sure they meet. That's one piece in our gun ordinance was actually against the second rate on pay to see it. That's my argument. Let's get moving forward to get that project going, because it will take us to do $2,000 this year out of our general operating fund, or split it, because we do have ordinances that affect our sewer, 10% sewer, and we go